Hey Squishies! Welcome back to another vlog. This is She-Ra, Season 1, Episodes 6 and 7, System Failure, and Shadows Over Mystacor. This is a commissioned vlog for Aleph Null. Thanks for backing. So, System Failure is another episode I've written about. Shadows Over Mystacor isn't. When I wrote about System Failure, I focused mostly on Entrapta and her, a little bit of the controversy I've seen around her character, of some people, really taking issue with her as an ableist stereotype. I'm not gonna get into that here, because I want these videos to be as different as possible from the essays, so that there's a point to having both. So instead, what I think I'm going to do is focus on Bo and the trio of servants. Because they're the ones that are doing the plot that's been kind of the recurring engine of the series so far. Namely, let's meet some new people, who are, cowed, persuade them to fight, get them into the rebellion. Which actually, that is something I want to address a little. Other than that's what it was called in the old She-Ra, why is it called the Rebellion? What are they rebelling against? As near as I can tell, the Horde only controls the Fright Zone. Everything else, like, they can send forces there, but all the princesses still have their domains and such. So they're not really rebelling against the Horde. They're just trying to fight it off. Which is interesting. I'm not sure why they changed, because it is a change. The old show, the Horde was basically dominant over the entire planet, and very little pockets were left free, but that really isn't the sense you get in this show. So, it's just an interesting difference. If I had to put a reason to it, it would be that between Star Wars and the Revolutionary War, we have a cultural tendency to lionize rebels against oppressive authority, which of course is good. We should. Rebelling against oppressive authority is just an inherently good thing. But that isn't the only good thing. And in particular, it's interesting to me that they choose to cast it as that rather than what they basically are, which is indigenous people fighting off an imperialist invader, which is not the same thing as a rebellion. It becomes a rebellion after the conquest, but at this point it's just fighting off an invader. And that's a scenario we're less comfortable with, because for most of our history we've been the invader. Frankly, in the US, for all of our history. That's what we started as. Colonists. That's what the Horde are. They're colonists. They came to this world from elsewhere and immediately set about trying to take it over and make it serve their purposes. Which, like I said, we like to put ourselves in the shoes of the plucky rebels. We don't so much want to have to identify with the evil invaders who are trying to conquer. But most of the time, that's what we've actually been. So that's fun. But this episode actually is a lot of fun. The break from the Horde as the villains in every single other episode is actually really nice. It's a little disappointing that we don't get to see Catra because she's the best character in the show. But, you know, she's in all the episodes except this one, so okay. And the trio of bakers are really fun characters. Honestly, of all the people reluctant to fight, they have the best reason. They don't think they have the capability to do it. It's not quite the same. It's similar to Perfuma, but not quite the same in that she actually has a lot of power. She just isn't willing to use it that way, / doesn't realize she can use it that way. Whereas the trio of bakers are really they have no powers at all. But, you know, they figure it out. Similar to the way Bo does, which is, of course, the whole point. This is the Zeppo. This is, the boy with no powers is useful too. You know, it's very common to have a character in a show like this. You have the unpowered character who's the only unpowered member of the team. Avatar did it. Buffy did it. And it seems to be a requirement to give them an episode where, if they're male, they get an episode where they deal with their lack of powers and their feelings over that. Because apparently, because, you know, masculinity in our culture gets equated to power, so not having it is quote-unquote emasculating. So they need to prove that they're useful in a way that unpowered female characters generally don't. It's messed up, but yay, patriarchy. What I like, actually, is that Bo is never shown to have a problem with that. The others don't listen to him much, but there's never a Sokka-esque sense of, what do I bring to the group? He knows what he brings to the group. He wants them to know what he brings to the group. And that's very different. That's, you know, a lot less of, well, you know, as a man, I should not have to show what I bring to the group. You should know I bring stuff to the group. He genuinely has stuff he brings. So, that's kind of what his plot is about, and what it's about with the trio is getting them riled up to fight, which he successfully does, and they take down a bunch of robots, and it's great, and then we will never see any of these characters ever again, except in Tracta. I want to know more about the sewer person. The one who pops up out of the sewers, warns them that the place is dangerous and not to make too much noise, and disappears for the entire rest of the series. They have like that one line. They're on the screen for one shot. Who are they? I suspect that they were written in as a way to tell us where all the people have hidden while the robots take over. They're in the sewers. But they're such an odd-looking character that, you know, the implication is almost that there's a race of sewer people living in Drill, which is fascinating. Like, is it like a Morlock kind of thing? Who knows? But it's certainly interesting. And I would like to know more about them, or to, see some people from Drill other than that trio of bakers. Who are great characters, and it would be cool to have them back too. Anyway, Shadows over Mystacor. This one really gets into the relationship that Catra and Adora have with their mother figure. Because that is, of course, what Shadow Weaver is, as Adora admits. I like that she and Glimmer have in common that their mothers taught them this kind of tactical stuff, combat stuff, but also mom stuff. And what I like about that is that it sets up this contrast of, it's not what she taught them that's the problem, it's how. Similarly, Castaspella is kind of terrible. She's one of those people who, is constantly doing stuff for other people, not because they want it done, but because she wants to do it, and she's gonna do it no matter what they want, and then she's gonna get hurt by them not doing anything in return, and get really passive-aggressive about it. It's a very self-centered kind of pseudo-generosity that pairs well with passive-aggressiveness, which Castaspella shows plenty of. And it's not a very pleasant way to behave, but it's not in itself outright abusive. And that's why I like that they have that in contrast to Shadow Weaver. Like, it's not just that she... when Shadow Weaver says, I was trying to make you strong, I was trying to do good things for you, we don't believe her. Whereas when Castaspella is acting like she's trying to do good things, when she acts concerned, we believe that she's concerned. The manner of her concern isn't expressed great, but that sentence wasn't expressed so great either. But she's not abusive the way Shadow Weaver is. Because what Shadow Weaver does is literally try to make Adora crazy. She is literally gaslighting Adora. Which, I've mentioned in other videos and essays and stuff, that term gets a little overused. It doesn't just mean lying. It doesn't just mean trying to persuade someone of something that you know isn't true. That's lying. It doesn't mean trying to persuade someone that they are wrong and you are right. That's persuasion. Gaslighting is explicitly trying to undermine someone's sense, trying to undermine their general ability to distinguish real and unreal, trying to make them doubt their own senses so that you can then manipulate them further. That's quite different from just lying. It's not really something you can do in a sentence. It's something that happens over a period of time. It is what propaganda campaigns do to populations. It's essentially one-on-one propaganda. And that's what Shadow Weaver is doing to Adora. She is isolating her from the people around her, making her question her own sanity, so that when Shadow Weaver starts telling her things, she will latch onto that because she can't trust her own opinions and beliefs. So she'll listen to Shadow Weaver. It's actually really well depicted for, in an age-appropriate kind of way. And it's messed up. We see some other hints of Shadow Weaver's abusiveness. The sheer panic that Catra shows when Shadow Weaver yells at her. that's a red flag. That's, Catra's not a small child. She is, but apparently by the standards of the Horde, she's an adult. She's old enough to be a Force captain. But she panics and runs when her mother figure starts yelling, which tells us that awful things have happened her whole life when her mother figure starts yelling. It's another indicator of just how abusive this all is. The last thing I wanted to comment on is the fact that the Sword of Protection can become a shield. That's why it's of protection. She-Ra very much ties into what in my writing on the DCAU I've described as the protector fantasy. The idea that there is someone who has that there's someone who will protect us from the evils of the world. That they are... It's a specific type of hero. There's a hero that goes out and changes things, and then there's the protector who stays here and keeps us safe and keeps things from changing in bad ways. Superheroes are pretty much universally protector fantasies. They're also almost always examples of heroic trauma. And She-Ra is a good example of someone who is heroic and traumatized, but not an instance of heroic trauma, because there's no connection between the two. Her heroism does not rise from her trauma, it rises from leaving her trauma. That's a subtle distinction, but it's an important one. By contrast, Superman has superpowers because he is separated from his people and living on Earth. His people are all dead. But that's his trauma, Batman is who he is because his parents were shot. Spider-Man is who he is because Uncle Ben died in front of him. I'm referring, of course, to Peter Parker Spider-Man, not the good one. So that's not She-Ra. She-Ra is traumatized by her abusive upbringing, but what makes her a hero is finding the sword and transforming. She's because she's not a superhero, she's a magical girl. In this show, explicitly so. Certainly has a lot of the magical girl in her in the old show, but I actually think that's mostly coincidental because magical girls were still relatively new in the 80s. I mean, they'd been around for 15, 20 years, but not in the US. They'd had little to no penetration here at all until Sailor Moon, which was still several years after She-Ra. So I think it actually, it independently hit on a lot of the same things that magical girl shows do, while new She-Ra is absolutely drawing from the magical girl genre. She has a freaking transformation sequence. It's a really good one. But yeah. I think that's about it. Hope you all enjoyed that. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Check out my Patreon for early access to vlogs, essays, let's plays, and more. And I'll see you all next time. Bye!